this. Let me go here with this one too. I heard you guys talking with Mike Gill, and John was saying this. You really believe, Xander? Do you really believe that Makai Lemon and Eli Stowers, it's cool that they're not going to be part of the offense early? That, hey, to try to matriculate them in and get them acclimated to the upcoming season when you in dire need of playmakers after you lost one of the biggest playmakers? You really think that those guys not having any like impact on your offensive passing attack, you think that's cool?
I mean, I don't think it's great, but like Sills, if you go down the list right now, number 1 overall pick this year is Fernando Mendoza. Anybody expecting him to have an impact this year?
I think quarterbacks are different than every other position, dude.
All right. How about Kenyon Sadiq, the 16th overall pick? You expecting him to have a massive impact this year?
Not after him getting hurt in camp yesterday.
Did he? I didn't see that.
Yeah, he got hurt with the Jets here, but I think they were trying to. Well, you think with the kid Tate that was
Cornell Tate, but I mean that's the number 4 overall pick. That's different than the 20th overall pick. I mean,
okay.
You know, this is like so. Look, I don't think it's ideal more based on the circumstances the Eagles are in as compared to the general consensus of what top draft pick should be in the league. I think you see tons of top draft picks across the league that don't really contribute to year 2 and 3, even if they have a year 1 where they play, but they aren't, you know, like for example, look at some of the Giants recent picks. I mean, how high they take that dude, what's that dude's name? Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, it took him 2-3 years to be able to be an impact player. You know, that's okay. He might be a really good player. It took him some time. So I think across the league, I mean, it's more common, but I think the circumstances that the Eagles are in this summer with trading AJ, coming off a year with bad offense, you know, basically trying to make up for some of the offensive deficiencies by drafting a first-round receiver. Like, for example, they didn't trade AJ and go and sign or trade for some big player to replace him. They used the first-round pick. When, by the way, if I zoom back to the day before the NFL draft or even the day of the NFL draft before that pick came in, not many people believed the Eagles were going to draft a wide receiver with the first overall pick. So they did this. They made this pick that kind of went against what most people were thinking they would do based on their needs. They trade away A.J. Brown a couple months later, and now you got a fan base that's like, well, shit, this offense now needs to get better with Makai Lemon. And I think it's created this maybe unfair expectation, but I think a very real expectation of I fall in that same boat. You know, look, this is a Super Bowl winning window for the Philadelphia Eagles. You're either admitting to me, Eagles, that you've pivoted or you've switched to pivoting for the future of the Eagles, maybe the next 3 to 5 years, or you believe the window's still open and you drafted Makai Lemon and Eli Stowers to be a part of that window that we think is still open. You know, so I think it's kind of between a rock and a hard place here for this team because of the circumstances more so than, hey, you have a first round pick and he has to contribute in year 1. You know, I don't think that's the case in most places.
Well, I don't think that it's universal either. I think it's situational. You think the Giants are in a sense of urgency to develop players right now or no?
No, but maybe they should be.
compared to the Eagles, right?
They're not.
They're in a different place right now because you just mentioned Super Bowl window, right?
Right. I agree with that.
So when I have a younger player like Malik Neighbors, whether that guy gets on the field and I can get him along as I'm trying to get other pieces in my offense, there's going to be more time, and I've got to have a little bit more in a rebuild because I'm trying to rebuild my offense, right? So there's going to be a little bit more margin of error whether or not you've got time to develop that player.
So what you're saying is if you're operating like a great franchise, you have higher expectations than everybody else.
And which means you have a shorter window of and margin of error to
Yeah,
get these
I
guys
agree.
up to speed, right?
Well, there's always a smaller margin for error.
If you want to take advantage of that Super Bowl window, Xander.
Right. I mean, there's always a smaller margin for error when you're going for a Super Bowl. You know, and only one team wins it, everybody. So, you know, that's naturally always going to create a smaller margin for error. But I've been trying to preface the lemon conversation because, you know, people always get their panties in a bind if you say it. It's like ridiculous. It's the buttercups. But I've been prefacing it by saying, I'm not yet worried about Lemon's career, right?
Agreed.
I'm worried about year one right now.
Yeah.
Because I do believe this team
fair.
needs playmakers. You know, you get rid of A.J. Brown and you already have had, let's be real, a pretty poor passing offense. And you're also now installing this offense that relies a little bit more so on passing the football, on timing routes, on progression reads, you know, on the wide zone, all these different things. You know, you would think, hey, that's the time that you need A.J. Brown. You know, hey, I'm switching offenses. All right, well, your great receivers should help make that a little easier. Well, now you got rid of one of them, so you need another one to step up. Now, I have been somewhat intrigued by Dontavian Wicks. I mean, remember, Sills, they didn't only trade for him, but they gave him that 1-year extension as well. So he's going to be here for the next 2 years. So I think that's somewhat exciting that he's emerging. And if Lemon does get up to speed, you at least have a really good 3. I'm hoping Wicks can be the 2 this year and at least do it viably. But, you know, that's going to come back to QB for me because when you have a player like that who seems to have good talent but hasn't really quite been a number 1 or a number 2 in his career, like that's where I go to the quarterback to elevate, right? Is Juju Smith-Schuster a number 2? Well, probably not on most teams. But Pat Mahomes looked at him and said, I'll make it work. I'll elevate you. I'll lift you up. Is he really a number 2? Probably not in the league today, right? So I think that's where Jalen has to do a really good job this year at elevating the play of those around him and being kind of that spark plug on the offense. You know, it's no longer, as a word that Sileo will use on this show often, no longer the caboose. No. You know, you have to be the engine now. And I think that's part of the burden that comes with being the leader and the elite quarterback and the top 10 player and all those things. So I think that's what Jalen has to answer the bell on this year.
I'm going to tell you something that drives me nuts when I hear people say this. And I know what Vic did the other day when he said this. Nobody's keeping score out there. Bro, if you're filming practice and you're filming drills, there's a scoreboard out there. Do you think it matters in practice right now between the number 2 and the number 3 wide receiver in the Eagles when they're looking at practice film on who they're going to put in the second hole or the third hole or maybe even the fourth hole? Or when, how about this? Is Markel Bell really beating out Fred Johnson? Well, guess what, Xander? If you film it, that's scoreboard for players. Because for me to be able to play and me to be able to be in a rotation, how about this? You know those 2 edge rushers that Howie brought in? Those 2 guys that they brought in? You think scoreboard on practice film matters on who's going to be used as the 4th rotation piece? That's scoreboard, dude, for the players.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, well, in a very real way, dudes are about to get cut. So,
real life scoreboard is life in your career is on the line. So when those guys say like this, practice doesn't really matter. Well, then, dude, why are you filming it? Okay, I get it. You're right. Because film matters who's going to play in this team.